This is Jonathan Agger for Seconds Out. We're here in the immediate aftermath of Dillian Whyte's shutout victory over Oscar Rivas. He's confirmed himself as the WBC mandatory challenger. Eddie, your thoughts on his performance?
I thought he boxed really well. You know, a lot of pressure going into that fight. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff with the WBC, knowing that if he wins that, he's a mandatory challenger. Rivas is a very good fighter, tough, he's fit, you know, good boxing IQ as well, can punch. And I thought Dillian boxed really well. You know, second round looked like he was going to get him out of there. Rivas came back in the fight, knocked Whyte down, and then Dillian boxed beautifully from there, kept hurting him, body work was excellent as well, and dictated the fight, controlled the fight with a jab.
Obviously, Oscar Rivas came in with a massive amateur pedigree, beating Andy Ruiz, Kubrat Pulev. I mean, what sort of statement was that from Dillian Whyte to come off the canvas as well?
It was a big statement, and sometimes he won't get the credit because maybe people won't give Rivas the credit. People in boxing knew that was going to be a real fight. You know, they knew it was going to be a real test, and it was. And these guys have been boxing a lot longer than Dillian Whyte. You know, Rivas has, I think he's had 100 amateur fights, something like that. Dillian had 7. You know, so Rivas is a very good fighter, but Dillian's very tough, and it's very difficult to outwork Dillian Whyte and out-tough him. And every time Rivas kept coming back into the fight, Dillian would hurt him, and he'd just discourage him enough to get him back on a jab, win the round, and it was a brilliant performance.
Winner is going to be Wilder or Fury. Obviously, we've been talking about having an interim fight in between. What sort of opponent could we be looking at? Would that be an American?
I don't know. Yeah, probably in America. I mean, a lot of people have asked me that question. It's too early to say, really. Would you really go and have a really high-risk fight when you're mandatory for the winner of Wilder Fury? Probably not, but we'll see. You know, he doesn't like to take easy fights, and let him have a rest first.
Just quickly going through the card, Dave Allen obviously beaten by David Price. What do you make, first of all, of David Price's performance?
David Price's performance I thought was brilliant. I probably won't get the credit because, you know, a lot of people talking about Dave Allen being rushed to hospital and his performance wasn't great. But I thought David Price was excellent. You know, he boxed off the jab, went the rounds, which is unlike David Price. Good combination, sharp body punching, hurt him consistently. I think Dave will be disappointed with the performance, but obviously with the injuries he suffered, you don't know when they came. You know, he broke his cheekbone in what round? You know, he was obviously exhausted in the fight. He had a big laceration down his tongue. It's very easy to sit there in the front row and go, let your hands go, let your hands go. And when you're in pain, and obviously after the fight, you know, he would never want to be pulled out of a fight, but he couldn't get up off the stool, and obviously he collapsed onto a stretcher, but he was stretchered out of the ring. And there was a lot of concern. He's had his brain scan, and as I understand it, all looks good.
We obviously wish Dave Allen all the best. Now, carrying on, Chisora Spilka. I mean, what is it about Derek Chisora at July fight nights? And he just always steps up to the plate.
When it matters, when he really needs the performance, he finds it. But he's improving. You know, Dave Coldwell's done a great job. They don't like southpaws. They didn't really want that fight. But I just said, I think it's the fight. And it was a brutal performance. But, you know, Derek Chisora sometimes toughs it out and outlasts people. But that was actually electric, you know. And now we look to make the Joseph Parker fight. I think it's a brilliant fight.
And could that be in possibly the Joshua-Ruiz rematch undercard?
A long way to go, but you know that's the plan for the next fight.
Now, Richard Riakporhe, Chris Smith. You thought it'd be fight of the night. It was a brilliant fight. I mean, it was obviously one round in it. How did you score it?
About that, I mean, it's a very close fight. Chris came up to me after and, you know, sort of said, "What do you think?" I said, like, my gut feeling at the end was that Riakporhe just nicked it. I think the knockdown was a major moment in the fight. But again, both those guys are a credit to themselves. Young, undefeated, taking risks. And obviously Richard will go on, and we'd love to work with Chris Smith again. And
just a word on Charlie Duffield, came up short against Dan Aziz.
Another great fight, you know, and again, it doesn't matter really if you lose fights like that. I thought Dan Aziz boxed really well. I think he's going to be a contender in the division.
Now, Vasyl Lomachenko was here tonight. Obviously, you confirmed today that he's going to fight Luke Campbell coming up. I mean, how's he feeling ahead of that fight? Obviously, 6 weeks today.
Yeah,
we'll see.
The guys have known about it for a couple of weeks. I just feel like it's a great fight, and I'm a Lomachenko fan. You know, I felt like there's been a lot of people saying this year that, you know, some of the top names have been boxing in America, and when are we going to get the big names here? This was an opportunity to bring pound for pound #1 to London. Did the pre-sale today at the O2's madness. We've got the fight pass tomorrow, general sale Monday. It'll be a straight sellout. So it's a big moment for British boxing, and I really believe Luke Campbell can win. You know, I know everyone thinks I'm mad, but I just think he's a very, very talented fighter. Former Olympic gold medalist, both of them. He's travelled around the world with Lomachenko. Lomachenko's a genius, but here I'll give Campbell a good shot, and why not?
Just final one on Joshua-Ruiz. You said obviously during the week it's either Cardiff or New York. There's a few other options. In terms of breaking down the pay-per-view sales, what's the difference? I mean, obviously it's a bigger fight now. Obviously you do probably half you do what you do in the UK if you did it in Cardiff. Does that come into it at all, or do you think now this is such a big fight, even if it was in the States, it's a similar pay-per-view? I mean, if you could break that down.
Yeah, you've completely confused me with that question. But basically what you were trying to say was you do double the pay-per-view buys, UK pay-per-view buys, if it's here. And that's correct. But there's a lot more money to do the fight in America. But the money doesn't really come into it. He's got to win the fight. So at the moment, Cardiff is the front runner. But we'll see what happens in the next few days.
Well, Eddie, I hope the next people confuse you less. But cheers, thanks for talking to Seconds Out. Thanks.